What's going on, everybody? This is The Drop for July 3rd, Friday. We have a really exciting announcement today. We're going to share the trailer of our newest original podcast, Festival Circuit New Orleans. So stick around for that after this little intro. So Festival Circuit will be a multi-season podcast focused on the history and impact of festivals and cities around the world. The first season, which will come out next Thursday, July 9th, will focus on New Orleans and the New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Festival. So we set out to answer the question, what is it about New Orleans that makes the city such a special place for music? Anyone who's been there knows it's a place like no other. And once we started asking that question and a few other questions to some people, we really discovered a lot more than I think even we thought we would. We turned this into a 5-part podcast series that explores the history of the city, the history of music in the city, the creation and evolution of the Jazz Festival, memorable performances over the past 50 years, the impact of the late night shows around the city, and the legacy of the music and the festival. I've mentioned over the past several months on this podcast that I've been interviewing musicians, and we got to talk to dozens of people, including Ivan Neville, George Porter Jr., Irma Thomas, Anders Osborne, Ben Jaffe of the Preservation Hall Jazz Band, Papa Mali, dozens of others. And we also talked to writers, academics, and other people who could tell us a little bit about what makes the city so unique. So we're really excited about this. And we have a narrator, Rob Steinberg, who's an actor, and he's a New Orleans resident. He's lived there for about 45 years. He's appeared in hundreds of films and TV shows, and he's also just a huge music fan who's attended over 40 JazzFests. So great voice to tell the story for us. And this 5-part series really opened my eyes. I've loved New Orleans. It's one of my favorite places. I've been to JazzFest so many times, and I really wanted to do this series and try to look closely at the music and culture of the city and see how those things overlapped. And I think what we found and what we heard from these interviewees is even better than I could have imagined. So I'm really excited to share it with you. Please stick around and listen to the trailer, and then click on the link in the show notes to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss episode 1, which comes out next Thursday, July 9th. And I hope everyone has a great Independence Day weekend. Thank you so much. See you next week.
We have our own musical style. Not a little bit. Like, you'll play some New Orleans music, and that's only happening here. You just can't get away from it.
What is it about New Orleans that makes it such a special place for music? Is it the families of the city?
There was a point later on, where Charles, Cyril, us, and my Uncle Art, we all lived within 2 blocks of one another. It was just, music was everywhere, man.
Is it the centuries of unique history?
New Orleans is the only city that I'm aware of that actually melts the cultures together, including our food and our music. And because of when the slaves came over, they used music as a form of communication. And then as times grew and the slavery ended and we started getting more visitors, the cultures in this city seem to melt together. We take a little bit from each one of the cultures and we use it within the formula of the music.
Or is it the rhythm?
I look at New Orleans as the northernmost part of the Caribbean. I mean, we get all of those rhythms tied into it, the Tresejo, the Bambula, and all these different rhythms. And you hear it in all the music that we play, but the culture that's behind all those rhythms is all celebratory. And, it's deeply African. So that's kind of what makes New Orleans different from even anywhere outside of New Orleans.
Or is it something more spiritual?
Tori Amos told me one time that the veil between the living and the dead is much thinner in New Orleans than it is other places. So that's something that a lot of folks believe. And maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I don't know. I've only had experience on one side of that veil, so I couldn't really say.
On July 9th, from Osiris Media, comes Festival Circuit New Orleans. This 5-part series will explore everything about the music of the city and about the Jazz Festival that just celebrated its 50th anniversary. From the beginning of the Jazz Fest,
that's when the notion of, we can do this. This can happen in New Orleans. In fact, wouldn't it be amazing if it was something that celebrated the music that's already here? and the culture that's already here, we don't have to import anything.
To the most memorable performances in the 50-year history.
I would have said when I was younger, I hate Springsteen. That Seeger Sessions, which I think everyone has probably mentioned. After Katrina, that was one of the most cathartic, powerful, most amazing things. People were weeping.
We'll hear from Ivan Neville, George Porter Jr., Irma Thomas, Anders Osborne, Ben Jaffe, Papa Molly, and dozens of other musicians. We'll also talk to writers, academics, and music fans about what makes the music of the city so unique. Subscribe now and tune in on July 9th as we explore the power of music in New Orleans.